I can, but glasses, I don't understand, you know, so basically what I have to do with my focus and contact lenses, they're combined, you don't, you're not preoccupied, but when I wear my glasses, it. Yes, I was saying why it is the judge for contact lenses, but not the same for glasses.
Now ready to Zoom. We're live.
We're live. Okay, on that note, well, we're glad to be resuming for afternoon discussion of the, and I guess now, you can see we're going into the operating budget. Would that be correct?
That's correct, Mayor Rochford. So we're starting operating budgets. We've got Joyce, the chair of our library board, and Jennifer, the CEO of the library, here to do the presentation on the library's 2023 operating budget. So I'll let you guys take it away.
I want to thank council for allowing the library and the library board to present, because there's a lot of jurisdictions that don't permit this interaction in person. And I want to thank, and I thank you every year that allows us the opportunity to present in person our budget. So thanks. It's a short, sweet one because he has, I know, short time slot, but I wanted to point out before we get into the meat and bones of the operating is just kind of a little bit of how we compare. So how are we comparing to other libraries, serving similar populations, similar square footage? So these are statistics that are available publicly on the provincial website, and we can go and we look at see where we line up. So I just given you an idea of how it looks in comparison. And there are only 3 other libraries that I found that are serving similar size population with a similar square footage. And how we compare. So you can go through the data. An interesting one that I want to point out, and you can, if you have any questions, by all means, just jump in. An interesting one is, circulation per active card holder. I mean, that's awesome. That means we're really, our users are really, really using our library. And if you look at the local operating support, so we're kind of in the middle somewhere. But what that's translating to is we're basically punching above our weight in weight. Like we're really, so the money that council was provided to us, we're really, really, really pushing it to the edge. Programs held annually, we're 84 in comparison to the other ones. Total, and if you notice the amount of staff that we're pulling this off with, we're doing pretty good. So 2.4 full-time equivalent staff. So that's what we're running the library with basically. And then annual circulation stats and to see how the total operating expenditures per capita is way down, which means we're basically putting out quite a bit with the amount of money that we're given. So it's to show that council that it's a team effort, and we're really council's meeting us halfway, our board is coming in, and we're meeting you halfway.
This is the first time you show these statistics like this.
They're also available. These are 2021 stats. The 2022s have just been submitted and they'll be filed, and we'll be getting those. So keep it in mind, this is a post-pandemic-ish type, scenario. So they're and we'll be comparing them from year to year. Yes, so I think you presented this to the board already, and they were pretty surprised that it was. We're doing pretty good with what we're given, basically. Any questions on that?
I was at the Phnom conference, the library board of Ontario. And do you give this information to them somehow?
Oh, this.
Yeah, because it's funny because she said, I talked about some of these fairs and she went on the computer and she goes, oh, you guys are way ahead. You guys are 90% compared to the other library boards. So that's kudos to you for that. So that's really awesome.
Yeah. It's we're doing really well, and it's we have an engaged staff and we have an engaged board and we have an engaged council. So we're on all fronts, and it's very cohesive. And I do want to obviously pass on against the there's a lot of jurisdictions where it's not cohesive and there's some struggle, right?
We've also got a board member on a provincial board.
Mhm.
Council Donna St. Martin is on a provincial Ontario library.
Yeah, she's on the Ontario Library Board, it's
North or?
OLBA, Ontario Library Board Administration.
Wow, good.
OLBA, yeah.
Yeah, good.
I'd like to say that level as well. And we are members of the Federation of Ontario Public Libraries, and we are members of the OLS and OLA still too. You know, by paying into that membership, which is a fee, but we're at the forefront of this, lobbying the government, we're at the forefront of knowing what's going on. And these larger groups work for us, so collectively we can push harder, to ask for different things. And so it's any comments you want to make as board member?
No, just basically one of the things. I think we have to answer is us. Find a way to ask them to increase the Ontario library. Because they.
Been in place for a long time without an increase.
5 years.
That's a long time.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
position that we're putting together basically a resolution at the board level. And I think it'll be, once we have the resolution set, I think finding out when the timing will be optimal to push towards that, we can present that to different levels of government.
Just prior to the next election might work.
Yeah, the timing of it would be good to have maximum effects for the process of getting that finalized.
We're very happy. That's.
Well, it's information we get from the community, and you guys know, because you guys live in the community, it's, we have really good programs. The services is great. I like the fundraiser you guys did with the poinsettias this year. I think that was a good hit.
Yeah, you came in at the optimal time.
Yeah, I was sitting there, I was shocked and awe there, what was going on there. But I was like, wow, thank you guys. So, yeah. Good for you guys.
Thank you, appreciate that. So on page 3 is the budget request, and this year's budget, we kept, we're working with what we've got and it's working good. We're focusing, the increase we're asking is for 4%, and it's a good amount. And this budget is mostly focused on retention of part-time staff. I kind of want to avoid turnover, they're highly trained. So this budget is going to make the positions a little more competitive with other libraries as well, because the last thing you want is to have highly trained staff and then all of a sudden they're being headhunted, which is a possibility in the library world because it's so skilled. So this budget focuses on a little bit of improvements in programming and workshops, and also staff retention for part-time staff. Any questions on that? So and you can see the changes from the 2022 budget. Just stuff out of our control, like insurance, different things like that. Professional fees haven't changed. You'll see a modest increase in the salaries and benefits and supplies and other, which is basically, the nuts and bolts of what we're doing at the library, and utilities, of course, that's kind of out of our control and of different fees. As we were talking about the library operating grant, and we get 8,500 a year from province, and that hasn't changed here. So we have to kind of keep going from that. And then just the various other revenues. And you'll notice that we did approve a $0 amount for donations at the board level. And the thought process behind this, and it was brought up in years prior, was why don't we add an amount there, a projected amount. However, we felt that by having a $0 amount as projected revenue in the donation, it allows individuals to know that their donation is going above and beyond our budget. Like it's going to, so there's a higher likelihood of bigger donations and higher donations if you're showing that dollar that you're putting in, whether it's even for the small, $5 amount to $2,000 donation amount, that basically is going above and beyond, it's going to new projects, and it can be earmarked for other projects, so that's why we have it at 0%. To hopefully increase it, and we have been getting really, really good solutions. Last year we got a nice one from. That helps us. Any questions so far?
Well, we gave
I should have booked you. I don't know.
Yeah, bit of some upgrades to our technology. You'll see there's a from tech reserves amount in there, and we're bringing in a little bit from our surplus to balance
So just for council's information, the board was at about 5.6% increase. And I knew we were gonna have a rough year and asked if there was any possibility of reducing it to 4 by using reserves, and there's healthy reserves at the library. So that's the $2,440 was to bring it down to 4.
Oh, that's good.
Good job.
Yeah, we're quite happy to be able to have a reserve policy in place as with the recommendations of our treasurer. It's very financially responsible to have this in place. Doing any upgrades and different things like that, there's a lot of, I think, bringing up other library systems, but there's a lot of library systems right now, they're having discussions about why don't we have a reserve, and I'd like to point out that they look to us for those policies. So when the listserv, they'll ask, hey, you know, we're planning on this, is anybody out there? And you know, East Ferris is one of the first ones that put up their policy as an example for other libraries to use, and it's very appreciated. Yeah, and we're kind of leading by example. And so, yeah, it's a little bit unheard of at the library to have a reserve policy, and a lot of these places aren't happy with that, but they're moving forward and seeing it's good way to operate.
For council information as well, that reserve wasn't Jennifer coming to the board or to council and saying, I need 5%, then only spending 3%. What had happened over the years, there was quite a bit of donations, and because you budget 0 for donations, but there was a 2-part to that was, how do you budget for donations? You don't know what's coming in. Number 2, let's put that aside for the rainy day. So over the years, reserves have built up.
That's good.
So sometimes because there was underspent money, but mostly donations that were set aside. And I would say it's probably 5 years we've had a reserve fund and put in stacks plus.
We have to revisit it again, I think, this year.
Yep. And we've used some reserves in the past as well to balance, similar to what this year was, so.
Yeah, so there'll be an opportunity to, if there's new projects up on the horizon, we can.
Yep.
That reserve to help us get that seed money started.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, employees at the library didn't have a benefit plan if you were full-time. The thoughts then was when we brought in a benefit plan and pension and things like that, it would have been a big increase to the taxpayer, like or a bigger hit. So it was, let's get half from council and let's take half from reserve. So it's always been a way to kind of get something without putting the full effect from the taxpayers.
Input, Joyce?
it's been discussed the board, so it's.
Are there any questions that you have of me of this budget? Are you concerned, anything that's, and my door is always open to any council member who want to come and visit or, want to discuss an idea or, anything you have in mind. We are in the process of our new, the denouement of our strategic planning. So there's a new cycle that we're starting, and we are aligning ourselves with a lot of the municipal initiatives, especially in economic development and the youth entrepreneurship. So we feel that we have a lot to contribute as a library to that specific initiative that you have that goal. And it's surprisingly, we're already doing a lot of these things, and it's just a matter of taking it to another level. I think that's moving forward. I'd like to see a lot more of that alignment with your with the strategic initiatives, especially with youth and teens.
We're very fortunate that council that we've always had members of council that report back. This year is Deputy Mayor Lacruz, and she provides the report. So it's always very good, but the first thing I just wanted to say, I was very delighted to see your involvement with the youth trade show that you're supporting that. I thought that was really, good. Like, everything is very good, but that one stood out and I said, because it's recent, that's, yeah.
Yeah, we're in the process of working out our summer programming, and I'd like to see, I have a meeting with staff and be more successful as students. And as well, provincial funding, and I'd like to see, right now we offer business training for adults. And I'd like to see that go off into youth, skills development for youth entrepreneurs, and we want to incorporate a program that was to get kids to sign up, youth to sign up, and it'll be a one-on-one training with our staff and get them going. So that's what we want to.
I think we were also impressed when Deputy Mayor Riacker shared with us the fact that you're looking at your various profile of our current clients, I guess, that and you're seeing how you could further diversify that with additional types of clientele. I guess there was mention of more mothers and children, and how do you broaden that? So that's all very good. Yeah. Well,
Yes, in a nutshell, that's basically, so it's just a continued support of our projects and our initiatives, and we always, thank the past support that we've received, because we can't get to this point without, investments along the way in our staff, investments in our programs, and it's incremental, and it worked out great, and we come to this, I feel, a fair ask, and we've always, with the help of our treasurer, a fair request, and we're always willing to negotiate if there's any issues that council has with our budget.
well, certainly moving forward, as from a council perspective, I know that Councillor Kelly mentioned how it would be good with time if we could revise the signage. I know that we have ideas for maybe getting a shovel-ready plan for if ever there's an opportunity for expansion. I mean, so certainly, there's things that we will continue to work on, collaboration, but seeking out funding is key. Ways to get donations is key, that those are all good efforts and initiatives that make a difference
And
overall.
last year, I think you recall last year, we were successful at helping out with the trillion funding. And so that was a good initiative, and there are a few more on the horizon we're looking at. And the board, to see if it's something that we're gonna line up and use our skills, whatever we can to get it going.
Thank you.
Good. Just for general public who's on YouTube for totals. So the library's total budget, $178,000, and it's funded by about $159,000 from the taxpayer. The increase this year is $6,100 for 4%. I'm just thinking anyone watching would have heard totals and would be wondering what it is. Yeah.
And when
Those are the figures.
it comes to per household, we're not necessarily the highest contributors per household,
And this.
we're actually from yeah.
Presentation, by all means, send me an email around.
These are
Statistics, they're available everywhere, any question. My door is always open, my email, except this week, it's the trigger.
Yeah, we should thank Jennifer for being here today on her vacation.
okay.
Well, it's opportunity. No, it's okay. I want to come to me first finally after all this time. I guess last year must have been a big need.
Over the last 2 weeks.
I can't remember now.
Oh, good, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Excellent job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Come and visit. Snacks and coffee.
Oh,
Thank you, both of you.
thanks, Jen. Thanks, Joyce.
Good choice.
So if you can pass one of these that way, we're gonna proceed now with community emergency management. And then followed by the fire department. So if we can pass that along that side.
Is Tim supposed to be here?
Supposed to be here unless, oh, okay.
You sent me an email. Yes, we did it before.
Then he could make it, okay.
Very good. Couldn't make it. So I'll present the emergency management. For, I guess.
That's fire department.
It's not before.
Jen, doors unlocked, push it.
Oh.
Okay, so we'll start with community emergency management, fairly small budget. Almost fairly straightforward, but go ahead,
Yeah, so a few changes,
Wait,
okay.
and getting the CMC position, the honorarium into salary, so a little bit of an increase there. One of the bigger things to know, is the response kit, they were aged slightly, so we had to do some upgrades to them. One of the larger expenses, they were never provided with radios, portable radios to communicate with everyone else in the municipality. So that's part of, putting one radio in each emergency management kit. Aside from that, there's not really a ton of increases in here, so postage. Increase in pricing for that realistically is where that comes from. And then the meals as well, just to provide for some of our meetings, when we do have our gatherings together. Quite long, so.
Yeah, and what we had said as well is if we end up with an emergency, just say this year, $200 in food for if there's an emergency for a week or it isn't gonna get us too far. So we thought, well, we should increase it to $750, even though if you're stuck in an emergency that lasts several weeks, you'll still be over budget anyway, right? So.
Something like
Yeah, and council can recall, we had come to council to discuss bringing Tim on as an actual employee, not a contractor, because that's what's legislated. So that's why the difference between an honorarium and a salary. So we entered into an employment agreement. That's very basically, we looked at how many hours that a CMC has to put in for a year for a tabletop exercise, a total of 4 meetings, basically, and going through all the emergency kits and that. We figure it should be done on an annual basis. So what we've done is basically an annual amount. And then we said if there's an emergency, an hourly dollar figure is how the employment agreement is set up.
So that's emergency management, good, but I mean. You guys were reading like that, you? Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think we were behind in time getting that done.
Yep. One thing to point out for council, equipment maintenance is 0 this year versus about 1,500 the last couple of years. That's the generator maintenance of the old municipal office. What we've done is we always tag that to emergency management as having a backup generator, but this facility has one. And this is now our control center, basically the first. So we kind of just left the cost with this facility here. And the generator cost over there is going to the Corville Fire Hall.
Just that, I know this is not part of this, but maybe longer term for this. I mean, certainly we've had the discussion about a generator for the community center and we know it's very expensive.
Yeah.
Price out just for example, for the main elements, like, I don't know, the upstairs hall, could you have like a partial
Yep.
generator that we continue to examine options there for that?
I think when Ted Kennedy designed it in the first place, when we changed the whole, breakers and everything else in there, they made it capable that you could hook up a generator to it. You can shut down a certain system and open it back up again. I think it's wired for it. We just went with it. I think it's like 300 or 400.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I'm asking, could there be one big partial and not necessarily to the full facilities? Whereby it could be the upstairs hall and anyway, but it's not for today. It's something that continues.
It is possible because even a facility like the one we're in, we could have had a generator that only did emergency lighting and stuff. But our generator fully powers this building and the medical center is the same. So the
Right.
generator is about $125,000. They were.
It's already done that with his 2 panels. There's one at the back to run the ice cream. We had a big power failure. Yeah, Rossman's had bought a temporary generator, plugged in the back end, and we always plugged in the generator just for the lights and that inside. the building.
But when we always price it, we've always priced it for the full facility, have we not? Like when we've discussed it,
Yes,
it's always been full.
that's what the idea has been.
Now,
We had put a quote, whether it's what would have come out in the wash in terms of going out to tender or actual purchase, but it was to power the entire facility.
okay, all right, thank you.
Other idea is you could rent. Say,
And I rent whatever, yeah.
no, you can actually go little better than that. So when, say, if you run into emergency, say for this community here, you can get into contract with Caterpillar. So if something happens here, so say Caterpillar already, or their other generator plant, they'll automatically bring one up here, set it all up. And they'll have, so like almost like on power demand. There's something you may want to look at, and it's not a bad program, and it's a lot less than taking that hit for maybe once every, what, we'll say 5 years. That something will happen, so.
We weren't in that rental when that.
Yeah, but they have, for something like, say, the arena, they would have the machine that would be able to do the whole arena. If, you know what I mean, for community management, if you were gonna use the arena for bringing in people and whatever else, right?
As a shelter.
Yeah, whatever you wanna do for the community emergency.
In those types of arrangements, you get a prior, like I said, you sign an agreement, but it guarantees you,
Yeah, that would be not a rental.
we had that with. So it guarantees you that they give you the support when you need it. Is that?
The tough part becomes if there's a tornado or full blown out emergency that affects everyone, there is only so many generators to go around.
Yes.
So if they've signed deals with everyone, I don't know how that's gonna work, because I don't think they have that many generators just kind of sitting waiting for a massive storm, right? Not sure. We had discussed this before.
Yeah.
Yeah. we had-
Point. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Another piece for council is the day we do have a fire hall and the day we do demolish the old municipal building, the talks were to take the generator that's there and power the Coral Park Hall. If it was at all possible to repurpose it, because that facility is not on a generator.
Yeah.
So.
But just the equipment. So you don't have to get agreements with themselves with different generating equipment, whether it's.
They're middle person.
Multiple. Yeah, so it's basically taking the middle person out and going directly to a larger company that's actually gonna facilitate and deliver and
After start to finish. So explore
Yeah.
it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that.
Questions on that one? The fire department operating? So we've got a slight increase over the last few years. We've had quite a few changes happen in the last, I guess we'd say. So you all have a copy of the budget party, so I'm not gonna hit each line, I'll just try to hit the main ones where the main increases are. And if you have any questions as we go through, then just stop me and discuss that.
I'll add one point step, just so council's aware before we start. CMC in the fire department right now, it's an increase of 168,000 over last year. Well, 51.6%, 2.8% tax levy increase. So as you go through, keep that in mind.
Okay. So the first few lines, it's basically just kind of out of my control, not much that can be done there. So the first line, first substantial increase we have is uniform safety clothing. So we're needed for the uniform. It's been a little while since we've had some new members that have joined and some more new members that will join. Also I've included a little bit in there for some t-shirts for members.
We should speak to the salaries and wages step.
Okay.
I'll speak to it. The decision by council last year, and I had come forward, was to make the administrative assistant full-time from 10 hours to 35 hours. So that happened. So that's just a reflection of a decision from last year. Number two, this has to be pointed out. We're without a bylaw enforcement officer. We know we hired a building inspector who we hoped would be bylaw as well. It's not going to pan out that way. I had mentioned that to council. We had a bylaw enforcement officer, Brad. He had ended up, that was contracted through Chisholm. The idea we have and what's in this budget right now is hiring a full-time person, but in the month of July, so half a year through. That's bylaw enforcement / fire prevention officer. So both doing enforcement roles, basically. So what you're seeing here as well is about $25,000 in payroll costs on top of the administrative costs and any increase to just say step in the officers from one year to the next. That's built into here.
I thought we had talked about this. I thought that the new person we hired was gonna be file enforcement.
That's what I just mentioned. So the talks was, when we put an ad out, we were gonna get a building inspector / bylaw enforcement officer. When we did it, one person was strong on the bylaw side and one was strong on the building side. So where we're at right now is we got somebody that's going through all the courses with Paul, shadowing Paul, doing the building side of things, but no experience in bylaw enforcement. My hopes were, Chisholm just, back when we had the agreement with Chisholm just entered into an agreement with somebody and I thought they hired them full time. So I thought maybe there's an opportunity to do a contract with them again. But they've got a different kind of deal. They're sharing it with a different municipality. So it's only available to them. So we're sitting here whether make a decision. Do we push our building inspector to go through the bylaw training and have one dual position that way and not have fire prevention? Or do we hire someone now to cover the fire prevention role, which has been vacant for quite some time and nothing really happening there? And then covering our butts now for bylaw and having a full-time person. That's the discussion.
I think we should follow the mayor.
That's an idea.
Yeah, this, just for council's info as well, was discussed at our last fire committee meeting, which happened the day of before. It didn't make the agenda for the May meeting this week. So it's gonna go to May 23rd, but we had the discussion already of what are we doing with the fire prevention role? And that was a discussion that the committee had discussed about the dual position, so.
Doesn't seem to have.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I don't, you got your building inspector guy, but and if you go to the bylaw, have him taking over bylaw, I don't think that'd be fair. I think that you get two different jobs there. Your building inspector guy should be, and he's getting courses, and I can imagine those courses are pretty intense. Building inspector, or sorry, a bylaw inspector and fire prevention, if we do a combination between both, because they always go hand in hand, in a way. Now you'll see that, and then we see that in today's society, and I see it probably more than everybody else. Everybody is debating and fighting everything. That's where we are in society right now. So now you give a ticket for, say, burning, or you give a ticket for dog off leash or whatever case may be. People are fighting those tickets. To go to court, 6 or 8 months down the road, to have your I's dotted, T's crossed, having packages, crown brief packages, having notes, you have to vet, you have to take courses to your notes, you got to take courses to deliberate properly in court process, and put that all together. And that's not even touching the fire prevention. And the fire prevention courses, and now with the new training criteria, what the government is downloading onto the municipalities, that's a whole added work. So that would not be fair to put that role onto our building inspector. So we've had some ideas with regards to how and who and how that position is going to look like, and who's probably the best fit for that job to move forward. Because as we know, this community is growing. It's not getting any smaller. The more people coming into the municipality, the more services are requested, and the more demands for our services and for different departments. So this department's going to turn into, I would say, an almost full-time job if you look at it with the fire prevention and bylaw, and looking after different bylaws as we implement different bylaws as indicated on the last council meeting. We know that there's going to be new bylaws, and there's going to be more bylaws to go forward. So that's going to that's gonna be almost a full-time job. And just alone, with, if things do go to court in that process there, it's gonna have to be somebody with the right credentials, so.
Well, that's what I was getting at too. That's the reason we use the building inspector, because they were being these, gotta know the rules and regulations and the structural and septics and all that stuff. Like, once they go and there's a complaint, this person doesn't know that, he's got to go to our building department.
But we're like, my thought is that
We're,
the top part of this one is but you can never justify a full-time bylaw. That's where we've always, it's been over the last few years. We can never justify that. I can never come to council and say full-time bylaw. You get a part-timer, they go somewhere else unless you found a retiree like Calendar has recently, just wants to work part-time. But that's all his bylaw doesn't solve that, fire prevention, right? Look at short-term rentals. They're starting to spike again. We know it. We know we're gonna have to start enforcing them. And Councilor Tran brings up a good point. We've got like a new clean yards bylaw. Then you get short-term rental bylaws. You have all these things that now have to be enforced. With our building inspector as well, he's shadowing Paul. Paul leaves. We still have a shared service agreement with Chisholm that we do their building as well, right? So when it comes to that point, you end up with somebody who has to do our building permits, Chisholm's, all our bylaw. And Chisholm was kind of looking at us and saying, could you share bylaw with us as well when you get a new person? The person's just not got that experience to be able to share them to someone for bylaw, which now Chisholm's gone their own route to kind of solve their issue, I guess I would say so.
May I ask a question with respect to the person that would be hired? Would that also be someone that would be available for firefighting duties if there was?
well, that's the thing.
That's the thing.
The other thing is, could be that person could be a number two.
Yeah.
Volunteer fire service, right? So it's still, we're in the stages of still trying to break it down, talk about it and see how it's gonna look and feel and how it's gonna benefit the residents and as well as the municipality, right? So
Like anybody can volunteer for the fire department. So if you bring on someone, they want to do that. Sure.
I mean, the staff, when it comes to firefighters, in terms of volunteer firefighters, it's an issue across the country. We've not maybe been impacted as badly, but it is the trend that there's going to be real problems with continued having people to volunteer. So to me, my understanding is that the direction is to always ensure that you have some full-time staff that are available and to grow that slightly so that we could be in a position to, I guess, to defend any situation we face. Is that a fair assessment of the current context? Yeah. So that brings us, me personally, why I like this discussion, if that is part of the concept of having a person that profile as well and be able to serve from a firefighting perspective, and it comes to that. So.
The only thing is I don't think we can force somebody to be a volunteer when it's an employment
No,
contract.
but
right? So-
basically they would be, but if you found the profile, you make the job description such that it included those elements, then it makes it positions us for the future.
it's something to look at, yeah.
Yeah, me personally, I find that a good
But
direction
it's,
to consider.
the thing is too, like, if you get somebody that's a retired, say a retired fire prevention officer, right? That's gonna do bylaws and do fire prevention.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, for
You're
sure.
not gonna have that person wanting to go and get 3 o'clock in the morning and go fight a fire. So,
Every Thursday night.
Yeah.
so that, I mean, that person's past that stage and but we've got three other liabilities and we get 2 checked off and then the last one is to become a volunteer. Well, you know what I mean? So we gotta kind of see how that looks.
Yeah, the tough part we've had with trying to have a current volunteer, like a current member, be fire prevention is that, like, if you look at the light, they got a full-time job. Then they train every Thursday night. Then they got a family and everything else at home, but then, oh, I gotta go out now on weekends, evenings, do fire prevention. That falls through the cracks at the end because it's the least important, I guess, for them out of all of that, right, Steph, if I had to say so. It's never been perfect, and I think the only way of doing it is making it a position, either a part-time position, or we can find someone that wants to work part-time, or make it full-time with bylaw. What's nice though this year, if it was to happen, is the effect is really only on 6 months, and then it gets into our next budget cycle, right? the idea behind it, but. So keep that in,
Just a comment, I was in the Perry Sound Fire Hall probably 10, 12 years ago. They only had 2 full-time employees. One was a fire chief, the other one was a fire prevention officer. So if we're ever wondering what they do on a full-time basis, wouldn't hurt to touch base with Perry Sound. That's 10, 12 years ago. If it's still in place, obviously there's a lot of work to be done if it's done properly.
It's a common thing seeing full-time fire prevention, and even in the snowing.
Yeah, well, Perry Sound, about 6,500 people. Now it goes exponentially in the summertime.
Yeah.
Online,
There's definitely a lot.
yeah.
Okay. Anything you want?
yeah, thanks.
So the next line where we've got a substantial increase in printing and stationery. So we just had to repurchase some of our burn permit books. A lot of the stuff is online, but we still have books with us. As well as I've got some truck inspection books in there as well. And then just some stuff from around the office. The printing of the books is the bigger cost in there.
Insurance claims and settlements, 10,000, that's the accident that happened. We have a $10,000 deductible, we got a budget for it. So that's our only cost to that issue. It's gotta be budgeted for, we have nothing in the budget for that, pay them, right? So.
Started moving forward.
Yeah.
What else have we got here? So now we're in training, so training obviously been a huge topic for the last couple of years with the new certification, so conference courses and seminars, quite a substantial increase in there. So I've got some training for myself that's included in that, obviously. But also there's some discussion that started at the committee level with training for some of the members, especially the officer courses that they'll be now required. So they're week-long courses that go out of town. So the discussion was to have a per diem allowed for them when they go out of town to try to help alleviate some time off work that they have to take, having to take vacation time or whatever the case is, right? So I mean, that alone you're looking at. So for 2 people to go for a week each, you're about $7,500 for a few courses right there. So
Yeah.
that's quite a large cost right there. And then, you know, some other training that we do as well, some online training and then in-house training, some of it has some costs associated with it as well. Meals for training, so weekend training that we do, we've got some live fire training that we've got coming up out of town, so there'll be some meals there during annual Auto X weekend. Cost of meals have gone up substantially. Last Auto X weekend we did for $600 one weekend training, so quite a bit there. Any questions so far? Good. So into some firefighting expenses. So firefighting equipment, we're going to increase in there as well. Some of the things we're looking at, one of the valves on the side of the trucks, $2,200 for one valve to put on the side of the truck. That's quite a bit there. We've got some flashlights for all the members. Some of the bigger costs, I guess. Hose, we did hose testing this year. We haven't done hose testing in a few years. I can't remember how long it's been, but we did. So $5,000 for the hose. We'll have to purchase there, so
That's hose testing is normally an annual.
it is. So hopefully next year we'll be.
For council's info as well, the firefighting point system, our prior fire chief had come to council a few years ago now. Then in the recommendation was that it goes up 3% a year. That's how the points were determined. And then the same with officer pay was going up 2% per year. So that's in the payroll cost. But that was predetermined based on that report to council.
Protective clothing and boots, we've been working on this for a couple of years now. It takes a little bit of time to get everything up to date. All our gear does expire every 10 years, so that's a lot of money for a lot of gear to try to manage. So they need some helmets, we need some boots, we need some coveralls, work gloves, traffic vests. Not really a lot of anything. But I mean, you take our helmets, for example, they're over $500 a month. So we're looking at 5 helmets this year. Same kind of idea. Rubber boots are only good for 10 years, they're almost $300. Everything's quite costly. Pagers and radios. Most of that's a maintenance thing at this point. We're doing okay. Batteries. We need to start replacing some of the batteries. Like our radios are almost 10 years old now, I think, 7, 8. So batteries are starting to go. So trying to manage that, keep that up to date as long as we can. Maintenance. So one of the things that we got done last year should be done on an annual maintenance of our auto equipment. That cost alone is $2,000 annually. So they come in, they check over all our stuff, make sure everything's good, repair whatever needs to be done. So that's an annual cost that will be ongoing, as well as the rest of the maintenance of all the other equipment. We've been nonstop fixing things since October, essentially.
Well, one set of Auto X wasn't even working, right? At one point, and it got repaired.
Yeah, our pump went down, so we had to get it fixed, yeah. So that's the stuff that's over at Asterville.
Should do business.
Okay, yeah.
We had two.
I'm not mechanics, so I'm not fixing this, right, so.
We had 2 sets, but the issue being is one was in Asterville and it wasn't, you couldn't use them. Well, when you have an agreement with Chisholm that we're gonna show up on scene to assist. But you don't have the equipment that you need to go and assist, it becomes an issue, right? It could become a liability. So that I think you were handed equipment that wasn't functional, so that was repaired last year at a big cost.
Yeah, and it's nice to have it too, since we did have a situation with them last year where we used. Well. It's the way it is.
You hope you never have to use it.
That's it. We hope we don't have to use anywhere.
Yeah.
But.
The reality is,
It needs to work, right? Can't have broken stuff.
Cost per service, we use it about 6 or 8 times a year.
Yeah, and it fluctuates every year, right? 1 year we could 12, 15 times, and then nothing the next year. You never know. Equipment testing, that's basically the same.
Pretty good there, Steph, and I. So the next section is fire prevention.
Fire prevention, so fire prevention is a big push for me, over the next couple of years. It's a huge thing, it's something we do what we can, but it's a huge time commitment, so. One of the larger costs here is in advertising, so our fire rating signs are done. They're falling apart, the paint's coming off them, they're just done. So some costs in there to replace them, possibly even relocating them a little bit more visible to people driving by, especially the one over at Asterville, it's quite a ways off the road. And then some other fire prevention banner things, for fire prevention week and stuff like that, so.
Orville Fire Hall.
Rating ads, radio ads that we do for fire prevention as well, that's, and then maybe some decals on the trucks. And we've got a tank over in Asterville that's completely blank, so we might be able to do something there. So yeah, that's the fire prevention side. Corbeil Fire Hall, so we've taken over the whole hall over there now, so obviously there's an added expense that's been put on our budget. Number one, their report, janitorial services. Well, propane was there before.
That's all of the hydro. And all of the insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good increase there. I've got 4,000 there for building maintenance. Some of the stuff we're just looking to do, I mean, I know we're looking at a new fire hall, but we're still there for 3 years, 4 years, right? So.
Five,
if you look-
6.
That was a whisper.
So we're looking to maybe get some paint in there, clean up what we have there for our new training room. It's a great area for us now. I'd like to just kind of clean it up a little bit. We've got an area that we can now move our bunker gear into that is clean and away from the truck. So that's gonna take a little bit as well.
Can you speak to maybe some of the changes in there? I mean. It's not a facility council goes through on a daily basis, like you could come here and that, but there's been movement, like the bunker suits, just so council's aware, right?
Yeah, sure. So my office and Bert's office, not to the front. We're not in the back fighting anymore.
Yeah.
Windows.
So the old Monica office, Greg office upstairs, people's offices now.
And then Paul's old office is our equipment storage, so all our PPEs, or not, some of our PPEs, they're not the bunker here, but all of our extra stuff is in there altogether, all our fire prevention stuff. Everything's kind of together now, so we can try to manage it a little bit better. And then, yeah, where my office was in the back, we want to change that and have our bunker gear down there. So it's away from the trucks, it's in a clean area. Members can come in one door, get dressed, and then go out into the bay instead of getting dressed right beside the trucks.
Plus you want.
I want to. Kind of nice. Sometimes, doesn't make a knocking on. Good.
Yep.
Any questions there? So the Astro Fire Hall. Not a lot of changes there, other than again, the building maintenance and the propane line. We've got propane there now to change furnaces last year. Building maintenance, it's time to start putting some money into the building. It's a good building. There's nothing wrong with it. It'll be there for a while. But it needs a little bit of TLC. So again, we're looking for some paint in there. Try to paint the metal walls that's in there, the drywall that's upstairs. Just try to brighten everything up, paint the floor in there. Just get it a little more appealing. If you're in there at night trying to check stuff and the trucks are in there, you really can't see anything. So we're looking into some grants to get some lighting, some new lighting in there. So it's a little bit brighter, but I think painting is going to make a huge difference. The well as well will be a good upgrade to the hall. Some of the exterior siding, we've got some dents in there. One corner needs some fixing there underneath where the hydro moves in, and put a big hole in it as well. Just some stuff like that we can, kind of do a little bit at a time, but. Trucks and equipment, I mean, everything's up, insurance is up, fuel's up, maintenance costs are up. Every time we turn around, it's $1,000 to fix the truck, 1,000 for this, 1,000 for that, doesn't matter what it is. Yeah, it doesn't stop. Equipment and testing, pump tests have gone up. The gentleman we used to have do our pump tests isn't going to be doing them anymore, so we'll be outsourcing that somewhere else, so cost a little bit more there. Like in that. So pretty much everything.
So ignore the next page, capital, I'm in the operating that. That's part of capital.
Does the fire department still make money for putting up the 911 signs?
So what we've got now is a different arrangement. The association puts up the signs, we cover materials. But what we did was, this was discussed with council and we said, we came back with the fees and charges bylaw amendment because the price we were selling them at wasn't enough to cover the posts that they go on. So at that time, what we did was, we said, go for it, we'll cover the cost of the materials and then pay per sign to the association for installation. This way, we didn't have to worry about the association coming back to us and saying, listen, we're losing money. Like, we're taking association money to pay the material, right? So that we just said, let's cover the materials on our end. And here's the price we'll pay you to install. And then as time will, we'll know what the cost of materials are and we can come to council and say we need to increase the price, right? Versus having them losing money for a bit, having to, yeah.
I just didn't see the revenue. That's what I was asking.
Well, civic address is up here. Last year was 22.
Yeah, so the first page on the top are department.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
So there was about 20.
Cover it, 'cause it's, I mean, it goes to the department budget. And I would say, okay, that's it.
Yeah, so you can see last year civic address is about 2,300 in revenue. Civic address cost 3,800. Technically lost money and that's when we come to council, we gotta put the price up on this, right? It was the price of the post itself that like doubled or something.
Everything else.
So I guess we at last council had the villas come. And one of their asks, and I don't know if this is where we have this discussion or not, but one of their asks was to have fire inspection and that sort of thing. Would that change like this?
I got a quick answer.
Okay,
We have a fees and charges bylaw. Bylaws are passed by council. Council dictates in there, we charge a fee for an inspection. Stop can't waive that. That's like, we follow the fees and charges bylaw. If a resident comes forward, doesn't want to pay, and go to council and ask them, free, but it's not staff's. Like, it's not a staff decision to waive any fees, right?
You do it for one, you gotta do the others.
Well, that's correct. So that's why when that came up, it was, an easy answer for Donna, but I mean, it's a council meeting, I'm not gonna interrupt. But it's like any other fee, right? Like a hall rental, to waive it, like somebody comes and says, well, I don't want to pay the hall rent. Well, really, it's not for staff to make those kinds of decisions because council dictates the fees we charge. So it'd be a special request.
For me personally, with the senior villas, we've done a good job of supporting them with the tax breaks that we've given. I'd like us to examine how we can continue to do that. Is there anything further we could do on that, so that we don't have to necessarily go item by item, but maybe approach that on a more total basis?
So if I can answer to that, I think council now with going in and getting into budget, you realize there's some hard decisions this year.
Yes.
It's very hard to start adding costs now, right? So anything we do, it's almost better as an in-kind thing. I know there's lots of kind of discussions around engineering or legal and cutting grass, snow plowing and all that, right? But when I looked at it and I talked to staff about it, it almost feels more of it. If council really wants to support, maybe you say, here's X amount of money we'll give you per year, put it towards those costs. Because I'll give you an example, legal, we can't share a lawyer. I mean, we're aware of soil contamination that's reached their property. One day they decide to move on that. We're sharing a lawyer. Well, you can't. They need their own lawyer representation. So it's not that, you start getting to some of these things, there's a real liability piece to it.
So right now,
So-
the taxes.
Yeah, they're still getting a tax break.
To what extent?
One of them's 100%.
Yes.
I have to go and look. Donna had the figures. It was great. But it's 100% to the end of the agreement for the new ones, I believe is how it was. The other ones were 50% to a certain point.
So could we look at that?
10 years.
And could we look at everything combined so that could be a way for us to handle that? And so maybe it's not in time, but I would think that may be an important element. That way it's a special treatment, given that it's a nonprofit or a.
Like if council wants to do something, throw it on me to come back for a recommendation in some form. If that's what you want. But we've had a real good discussion at staff level as well. Like I'll give you an example. And Donna, I had a good talk with Donna about the snowplow piece, right? So right now, and it happens, and Councilor Kelly can vouch for this. So you got just say 5 staff members, you get the massive storm. our roads are priority.
Yes, exactly.
Then our own yards are, because we committed to the church to do the yards, Canada Post, our arena, library. So they're almost gonna be the least priority. And then Donna says to me, that's what I told the residents, like, it might get done at 9 or 10 o'clock.
So Jason.
Yeah.
As well, I find that if we can equip them as we have, so that we can give them breaks, so they have the cash flow necessary for themselves to manage their own affairs.
Yes.
I think it's a better approach than rather than starting to do this and that and this and that. We've done it so far, it's worked well, so can we carry forward and maybe do a bit more? Pardon me, Councilor Champagne.
Yeah, one of the biggest items you just mentioned, story. The municipality, it's like anything else. If the municipality is going to take it over, liability will just explode. Because now they know the municipality is maintaining it, slips and falls. Municipality's got deep pockets, that's what's gonna happen. Right now, whether they're running by a private group or they're running by privately, they're less apt to get hurt.
But I'd say if, my impressions are that as a council, we are in support of supporting our villas. So it is, as Mr. Tretzi just asked, if we give him directions to say, could you come back to us with proposals that could maybe, you know, you made a few comments here, that he could come back and make recommendations, would that be all right, council, to approach it that way? We're not necessarily voting, just a direction.
I agree, put a monetary amount on.
Yes,
You just gotta remember, like 1% is $50.
For us, just say 60,000.
No,
Just to rate, just for one, and that's a 1% increase, so that
Yep.
we gotta think about it too.
but I'm in favor of that.
okay, would that be all right? So this way he, yes.
Well, it'll have to be done by tomorrow.
Well,
Oh.
and everyone-
You know, it won't be,
I know what you mean, yeah.
fairness won't be exact, but you know, it just. As you said, 1%, 60,000,
Yes.
you know,
And we have new residents, I mean, we have. That's what we just said, we'll let you think.
An idea for tomorrow, is that,
Just an.
okay?
All right, and we'll believe, so that taxes.
Because even you look at 0.5%, it's $30,000. I feel comfortable with something like that, but any more than that, I never have time with it.
All right, so what do you want to do about that? I just knew that was one of their asks, and if that influenced here. So I apologize for the.
Okay.
Yes.
That, yeah.
On our operating tomorrow, anyway, we'll be talking about it, so
Oh, yeah.
everything's on the
at
table.
least we can get it ready now.
Oh, it's a good idea,
Well done.
that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions for our chief?
I just have one comment, come a long way, you're doing a good job. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're getting excellent direction from the gentleman across the hall here.
Okay, you pushed it.
Oh, you're going now, eh?
Okay, so we're.
Big stuff.
Little time.
So now we're gonna get into facilities and recreation. Greg wants to come up. We got Greg here, our Director of Community Service, to go through budget. It's another, like, I'll give you guys the heads up on it. It's another budget. You're gonna see there's a few items that dictate increases, right? But I would tell you from the facilities side of thing, $150,000 increase over last year, 2.5% tax levy increase is the hit. You're gonna see big costs for furnace oil, big costs for insurance. You can do it. You gotta remember with a bit of the payroll side of things, because you're gonna see it. We just went through the collective agreement process. All that's been taken into account for this department as well as on plans. So it's all in there as well. It's been calculated. So we'll start now, Greg, with parks, playgrounds and beaches.
Sure, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone.
Your voice like sincerity.
Yeah. It just.
Well, I said to Greg, I said, what is going on here? And I usually right away say, okay, I got a major problem here, right? But then you go through it after, you're like, yeah, I guess it stays as is then, Greg. Like, unless you're doing major decisions, right, on terms of service or making cuts and we're not gonna provide something, Some of these numbers are just what they are.
Some of the stuff like this to throw away, like propane and we don't have natural gas, they're like gas also. Obviously, these things all almost doubled in cost from 2020 to now. So just in our propane, furnace oil, insurance for the rank, we're almost $70,000 off, so that's what happens.
Yeah.
This instead, so it's like some of these things are just not affordable costs, unfortunately.
One thing to keep an eye on as well, council, as you go through and you look at just say 2022 actuals. What I budgeted for insurance, and what came in, the insurance came in more than I budgeted, and I believe it was 15 or 16% of budget last year. Like this year, I've done 17% across the board for insurance. North Bay was just slightly under that, and when they did their renewal, they were over. So at least I knew that info, but like this is a 17% insurance. They did increase like that last year, you think you're covered and you're not. Right, so you'll go through and as you see insurance, you might say, oh, well, Jason, why is it so high this? Yeah, but look at last year, what was budgeted and what it came in at. It's,
And we'll wait till next year.
well,
That's gonna be the big.
and you know what? Put a set of handcuffs on you because you can't do anything about insurance, right? So,
Or
yeah, so. Couple things to keep in mind as you go through. I'll start with the first line, Greg, and then take it away. But when you see allocated wages, a few years back, what we did is we took the total budget of the arena and we broke it down 60% of wages to the arena community center, 24% to parks, playgrounds, beaches, and 16% to facilities, because that's the areas that the staff take care of, basically. It's just a pure straight formula like that. So when you see the first line, 122 versus 100, and then some of the actuals in the past, the challenge is always whether the staff member is coding their hours to the actual code. You're never going to be bang on for this, but overall, all we've done is taken the total payroll based on our current complement, current wages, and divided it up by that formula. So that's why when you see an increase like that, there are an increase in collective agreement, OMERS, benefits and all that. So that's the figure.
Yeah.
It's a straight math.
That's, and it does, so you'll see in the second page, there's another wage section and it's actually 10,000 under.
Yeah.
On the previous one, so this first line is over, but it doesn't, that's all.
And this does. Like, because we just went through the collective agreement. on that, isn't it?
So that takes that into account. Yeah. But that was kind of
it's all broken down too, right? His salary's broken up different.
not Greg's. Greg's is purely under planning.
Under planning.
Yeah. Because then what kind of, see, when you start getting into that is where's the extent? It's a slippery slope. So where does my time go? Do you start now breaking out public works by winter, summer, public work, attached capital projects? We've never costed out wages like that. Like, you know, like a cost accounting, basically, right? This was just one back in the day that was said, oh, it looks like such a high value for an arena. And if a stakeholder or reader of financial statement or budget looked at it and said, what do you mean 600,000 in salaries at the arena? Well, no, it's not just for the ice in 6 months. That's entire Parks and Recreation. So that's why it was split.
Well, it doesn't matter how you cook it anyway, because arena never makes you money. It's what else, what you need to have.
The only department that's ever made money is building in the past. Because we had one staff member and during the pandemic, 50 houses there, you make a profit, you know, so beyond that, we're subsidizing everything really, right?
You know, and two employees.
Okay, sorry, Greg.
So the first section is almost Friday, different, mostly maintenance related things, so, they're all pretty standard figures that we budget for most years. They go up and down a bit. You'll notice the actuals, like last year we had more expensive equipment rentals, but we had less in building and structure maintenance, for example. So they all kind of work out to about what those values are.
Buildings and structures is an increase, if you can touch on that.
Yes.
Roofs.
So building and structures, the reason why you see the increase from the 1,000 that was budgeted to the 6,000 is because we want to redo the roofs for the structure that used to be the washrooms at Big Moose Beach and at the Corville site. And now they're used for storage, and they do get actively used often. And if you see the roof, you know those shingles are basically disintegrating. So we're looking to
The doors were painted last year blue, like the color of our logo. They used to be green. But now you're looking at wood on the side that's a brown and it's falling apart, and then the shingles are deteriorated, right? So the thoughts were buy the materials, but have our staff do the work. on those two structures.
But we're still using portables, washrooms.
Yes.
Yes.
We have one at McPherson as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so the idea is to see if we can get the work done for three of them. They'll all look the same. They're all old washrooms.
Yeah. I was just thinking,
Big Moose, McPherson, Corbeil.
do we,
Better to just put tin on top. and be done with it.
instead of
We can-
Shingles?
We can look into options, and see what
I'll
the easiest.
just an idea, just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you could use the current shingle there and just strap it and put tin over top.
It doesn't hurt to explore options when we're looking at that.
We've got some.
Leave that up to the Mr., leave it up to the CEO, but just an idea.
We have a tin on the sheds at Cenotaph, and now we're looking at the red one saying, oh, look at the color of it now, right? We should have maybe went with a different color. Anyway, we're gonna paint the little shed that's it's weathered looking, the one like Catherine and her team used. We're gonna make it match the one that was made not too long ago to deal with the soil contamination. So anyway, just for looks piece. They have tin roofs on them.
Yeah, they do, so it's definitely an option.
Look at both options.
Okay, so moving on to the next section, recreation programming revenues. So we have, we budgeted a similar amount for soccer. Soccer is our biggest revenue generation of all the programs. Last year, we had an explosion in interest and registration for soccer. You can see between 2021 and 2022, we went up about $8,000. So I budgeted just a little bit less there, but I think all signs point to us having another strong year for registration for soccer.
We're currently sitting at about the $13,000 mark, so anything else would be like kind of gravy.
Yeah, so that's
The 1,800 drop in as well is a current actual. They were.
yeah, we've got a few, we've got like rolling derby that comes to series every Mondays.
Yeah.
Fitness is on Mondays as well, and Jenna's actively looking for new user groups, and we're trying to schedule on certain days to make it easier with staffing, so we can all in 1 or 2 nights. If it helps with our staff scheduling, but we're trying to attract more of that type of programming into it right now.
Additional grant is participation.
Yes, there's no grant satisfaction, so satisfaction went out about 1,500 to 5,000 this year, so that's significantly more money there.
So we're close to $10,000 extra in revenues, which is nice to see.
And then expenditures, the miscellaneous dropping costs, this is basically the in and out of its fashion, so just like 5,000 in fashion, and that in that category. I don't, you have the 2022 data on what that's just because we had 0 the year before. The only other inspection also probably, never mind, yes, that's right. Anyways, volleyball costs, we have some minor costs with that for prizes that we do for the league, and every so often there's like an average replacement or something, so it's minor dollars though.
What happens with drop in, just so council's aware, is that sometimes you'll say, they're doing shinny hockey, $2 a person or whatever. Well, stick it in there, right? Kind of thing. And then you might just do a one-off and there's a small fee kind of thing versus having a line broken out by every kind of program.
Yeah,
It's going to be a one-time thing as well. You don't want to start creating budget lines.
and then our soccer programming costs remain pretty consistent. Moving on to the outdoor rink.
We do have the soccer sponsorship as well from Lucky 13 again this year, and it's confirmed. So that 1,000 that's in there.
Every year, it's very generous to Lucky 13. Moving on to the outdoor rink. This is pretty consistent. Wages are down a little bit to what they actually were last year. It always fluctuates based on weather. It's really difficult to.
So I'll tell you what happened last year. The rink, we kind of lost a couple times. Whenever you get nice weather and you start from scratch again. So what had happened a few times was we didn't go out and the outdoor rink person we would normally hire like a student or whoever, it wasn't them. We used full-time staff members assist to build it a few times and allocate wages to it as a more of an actual, right? The difference between just say 3,600 budget last year and 5,100 this year was I looked at the new schedule of when we're open. call them a caretaker. We have somebody that has the state room open. They're there doing maintenance on the ice. If you take the hours that they're there, Mondays, Thursdays and Fridays and the weekend, those number of hours by the new wages collective agreement, that was the difference. So what we were doing was we're actually budgeting before a little less hours than what the outdoor rink was really open, right? So now it's matching.
But cover roofs a big would help create that.
Well,
Just putting their, they just wanted the tender and they're putting one up on their field.
yeah,
Well, they seem to last. Or we have, but
yeah, I know. See, what we're doing this year with the outdoor rink, instead of having like the asphalt layer or whatever, we're going with concrete and pouring a new, it's like a couple inches or whatever it is, with the hopes that the difference there will assist, but it likely will. I don't think it's a major impact. I think in the end, a covered roof is the way to go, but you know, everything's freaking expensive.
Yeah, part of the issue with the rink that we were basing was the plastic type material that was on top of the asphalt. It just left a lot of like air pockets and stuff, and it's almost like melted out from the bottom.
Under the boards.
Like the way that was set up, so with a proper base, when we were doing concrete, we're hoping for the best. But yeah, the staffing, like we had to get out of the guys out there, we lost it at least twice, maybe 3 times, like almost fully because of the crazy swings and weather last year. Next section, there's a few expenses for equipment maintenance, insurance. Should be nothing for board maintenance. We're looking at new boards as part of the renovation. Next section, recreation, community center revenues. So we have park dedication under here. That comes from our development application for the consent for our subdivisions. But in this section, as far as revenues go, essentials, we budgeted 150,000. We budgeted 150,000 last year as well, and came in at about 140. But we should be looking at a good full season this year with no hiccups of any kind. So I think 150 is probably fair. Then side advertisements. So we restarted our advertising program in the beginning of this past year. So you'll probably notice at the beginning that there's some new 4x8 signs up on the player bench side of the rink. So we have some revenue for the first time in a while on that column. Moving on to the expenditures.
you skip by the vending machines there. Big cameras and all that.
Yeah.
Get nothing out of that, or
Well, we don't have any vending machines at the moment.
we got ATM machines. Was that ours or is that somebody else's?
Race again.
What are you saying? Okay.
Yeah. But if you look in 2022, there was $59 commission. I don't think it's highly used. Here's the thing, if you don't have a concession open over there and nothing to spend money on, what are you using the ATM for? Is I guess my thought behind it, right? Unless you're there and you say I need cash and I can't make it to a bank, well, then you do a withdrawal, right? And you get a commission. So I know one of the ATMs wasn't even in use. It's in the back storage room or whatever. Yes, there you go. So there used to be the two.
The only reason I recognize, because on Saturday night at the silent auction, people were going downstairs and saw there's an ATM.
It's in the
The
hallway.
door was locked. They didn't realize there was somebody there.
Yeah, no, but was that not the one that's right in the hall upstairs?
Yeah, well, the one that was upstairs was removed.
Okay, it was the one that was on the side of the storage room before.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
That's what I was asking. Was ours or was somebody else?
oh, no,
See any revenue?
not on the ATM. This.
okay, so the next section is the whole first part of this is the salaries, wages, and the extra associated cost.
Yeah, so from 220,000 right down to 18,600 for Omer's pension. That's all dictated on current staff complement, collective agreement wages.
Next few lines are basic line of all the supplies, computer software, equipment, furniture. There's always small costs associated with lots of these things. Just for upkeep. For our conferences, courses, and seminars. Last year we budgeted 4,000 and didn't spend that much. So some of this is actually just carryover from training that the guys at the arena weren't able to do last year. So there's a basic refrigeration that needs to be done. There is the playground, this limited playground training, something that needs to get done for the municipality. So we're looking at having our own guys trained so they can be certified to inspect playgrounds.
But we won't inspect others.
No.
Also, with last year not spending the money, the issue became whether the training is not available, right, or not online. So if the training is not available, then the money sits there unspent, right? These are kind of courses where it's not an online thing. You've got to be there in person. The refrigeration, I'll give you an example as well. Like that's where you go to take it, right? So what ends up happening is you say, okay, the staff should take it, but then the program's not available. We're seeing that right now with Take Creed as well for one of them that he needs. Nobody's scheduling the plumbing one. He needs to have it, but you can't get the course, right? So you budget for it and then you end up not being able to take it. So that's what's happened.
And then the rest of the categories after that are all pretty consistent year to year as far as our internet, our phone costs, station and advertising. Moving on to the page. So consulting, so we've budgeted 20,000. This is something that we also budgeted in 2022 and didn't spend. And this is budgeted and allocated towards the Park and Recreation Master Plan, which is a strategic plan item, which is something that we looked at last year, but sticks at the first year of this term of council. The rest of the lines here are pretty standard lines.
That whole section actually goes down by about $1,000. It's not what's driving the community center increases. It's the next section
Yeah.
where you get into ice plant and your overhead and all of that.
Yeah, so the next one here, this is where you really start to see it. So you see in 2021, we paid 8,500 for propane, and then in 2022, it went up to just shy of 20,000.
Double.
So double. So we only budgeted 9,000 last year, and it came in over 10,000 over what we budgeted. So we're budgeting approximately 2,100, 21,000. Near the bottom, you'll see insurance premiums went up from 75,000 in 2021 to 92,000, whereas we budgeted 87. So that's the increase Jason was talking about. It wasn't sufficient to cover the real amounts. So we budgeted up to 180,000 there. And then above that, the furnace oil. So we're at 80,000 estimated, whereas in 2021 we paid 41,700. So just these maintenance things that are nearly double are really hurting the budget.
Pricing on oil. Propane, once you lock in your propane at the beginning of the year for a price.
This comes up every year. It's the same answer every year though, Rick. Like we don't own the tanks, right? So do you want to swap the tanks?
No, I'm talking about propane. Don't you lock in your propane price at the beginning of the year?
I'll give you an example. We've got major facilities like this one here, that it's not your tank. You can't just switch suppliers every week.
That's not what I'm saying,
Right.
It's a guaranteed price on your propane at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, like, do you want us to go to tender for that? But we might be switching the tanks.
No, but I guess you're saying.
Place, I lock in at the beginning of the year. My price is up for the whole year.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Is it not gone up?
Oh, it locks in. You lock.
But it's not the same as last year's prices.
I locked it last year at 59 cents to say like that all year.
Okay, what about the year before? Like, they don't guarantee you the same rate year after year.
No, you have to lock it in every year.
Yeah.
Because then if you lock it in by June or July, I believe, you lock it in for one full year.
I mean, we can look at that. We have more than one supplier as well. Like, we've got Moores, we've got Grants, I believe the third one. What's that, sorry?
Got it.
So,
And trucks.
yeah, like, we can look into it for sure. But I mean, in terms of changing suppliers, unless we own the tanks, we won't be able to switch out a tank every year, right?
Every year you go for every 3 years. What I'm just saying is that I know from business is that if I lock it in, I'm locked in for the whole year.
Yeah.
And if I forget 1 year to lock in, then I'm paying for it. I can pay up to 92 cents or 93 cents.
Yeah.
If you lock in June or July for the whole year, same thing with the fuel, you lock it in and there's your price, right?
Yeah, I'd much rather when we build a new building, we just say this one, which wasn't the same because the tanks existed, but You're not controlled by one supplier, right? And you can really tender out your volumes.
Because right now we're open to whatever they want to charge us.
Yeah.
I would really look into that.
The increase on this one was almost $90,000, the total of just the section. It's dictated by about 4 lines.
Yeah. The other line of it is up like that is the building maintenance, so I budgeted 70,000, whereas we spent about 55,000 last year. And that's primarily due to a couple of different motors and fans for systems associated with the Iceland area at the back and things that we basically have to do. And then the associated labor with that. Yeah, I mean, that section is where a lot of it comes from. It's a lot of it is quite well. Coming on to the drilling range, so we have our revenue line in the first line, that's our rental income. And then the second line is the costs associated with it. Pretty consistent, I mean, similar jumps in furnace, insurance also, but unexpected. Next one's fitness center, very similar to drilling club, pretty consistent year to year. The library is another one that remains generally pretty consistent year to year. Won't get too much into it.
You're gonna see under the library that 159 is what was presented today. So the levy's included in here.
And then Canada Post lease, there's really just the 2 lines, the maintenance and the rental income. Corville Park Hall, very similar as well. And so on the next page, expenditures for the Park Hall. So, and similar story, but we can sell a bunch. The territories costs aren't super high. The budget is a little bit more for building maintenance, for anything needs to be done. And our paying fees are a little bit, we did an RFP last year for new cleaning services for all our facilities. Otherwise, very consistent. And then the final one, for Park Hall revenues, okay, so yeah, that's the entire budget then. If anyone has any questions, yeah, they can answer.
It seems like you're paying a bit more, right? For the home, or the home.
Yes, what happens with that is just a basic formula. So, they give us half of their operating grant from the province to a maximum of half the cost of the hall.
Ah, okay,
Yeah. So as costs go up for the hall, then they get more from,
sure.
yeah.
You're
You're gonna see change. Yeah, you're gonna see change better once we know, like, right now, we don't use it really, right, the hall. So we're gonna get into a lease, a long-term lease with them in terms of them being the sole user of it. Sticky point for us right now is that skate room. Because you can't,
The point is-
skate room, you can't give up the skate room until we have another facility for, users.
There's other users on it too, right? I mean, you've got Knights of Columbus,
Yeah, so what the,
Golden.
yeah, so the thoughts were, and this was just the thought, I mean, we've not come to council yet with it, was that we lease it out to the seniors and then any other person who wants to lease it from the seniors. So in one way, we can say, this is the market rate for a size like that, facility like that. We have to cover certain costs and that's the rate. If they market it well and can lease it out to people for weddings or other events, that's their money. If not, you're getting into then a lease that says you only get a Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. The town has it every evening, weekend, and then you're still dealing with rentals. You're also getting a seniors club now that is making decisions over there without any, I'll say, authority. You're starting to get cork boards put up on walls and bookshelves put in and everything without any ask, like it's their facility, right? So it's best for the township to get into a lease that says it's your facility. And then if they want to lease it out, then go right ahead. But if not, we're gonna have discussions with them that we still own the facility. They should be getting permission to do certain things, right? So Because now you started leasing it out. You want to lease it out for a wedding. Who wants to have a wedding when there's a library bookshelf in there and there's foot care chairs and everything, right? Like you don't get, we never had much leases in there to start off with, like from it tends to be more the arena. But we gotta have some parameters around it. So that's, I guess, a bit of the thought with it. Right now, the Knights don't pay us, right? Like for utilization. So I don't know if we ended up going that route, you don't know if the seniors are gonna say, okay, well, now we're gonna charge them.
But these people build in for, I mean, it becomes a community clubhouse as well. That they-
Yes, you can have exceptions,
They could
right?
have exceptions.
Like even one for the curling.
Oh,
Says the municipality can use it whenever we need it,
precisely.
right? So you could build that into the lease, but that's why I said we've not come to council yet to say, how do we want to go about this, right?
But you got 2 or 3 nonprofit groups that use it.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, we need to want to,
I
no,
wouldn't want to close them off.
No, no,
On the other hand, you like the Knights of Columbus, you start dances again, they're starting up again.
yeah,
There's no room, there's shelves all over the place. That's all gotta come down. I think.
well, that's what I'm getting at, right? Like there's been no authority given for some of these decisions that were being made, so.
but I think it's,
And I don't want to sound negative because
No.
great things happening,
yes.
but in a way, we are the owner.
Well, then it's got to be a balance somewhere,
Yeah.
Yes, it'll be.
because right now it's carte blanche over there.
Well, and I find every little thing that happens, I don't mind saying this, I would say it to someone's face, but every little thing over there seems to be a disagreement with the height of the chairs. Oh, don't put the signs up on the wall. Don't do this. We own the facility, guys. Sorry. But that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So I find every little thing it's an administrative burden to administer that facility.
I think through a lease is how we will need to,
Yeah,
sure.
because you look at the costs are going up quite a bit for something like the Corio Park Hall. You start looking at propane, the same things, propane, hydro, insurance.
3,000 a year.
Yeah. So, and when you're getting, 12,000-15,000 from the seniors and they're gonna take over a facility. How much does council want to subsidize a facility that they no longer have any use of? Or be able to make any other revenue of leasing it out to others?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's built to pay for it.
yeah. So anyway,
Where on here is the income we get from rentals? Is that 20?
for which,
Shoreville Park Hall.
under Corio Park Hall.
Okay, so is that?
720, I think. Yes. So like if you see the hall rentals, Deputy Mayor, there's not big revenues from that.
Okay.
Years ago, it used to be about $1,300 a year.
Yeah.
It's kind of dropped. I mean,
Okay.
they tend to be one-offs. Like there used to be the Métis or their native group came every year. They had the little fire outside and stuff like, they were like the same kind of rentals every year. The odd wedding that happened, right? So some of those have dropped off over the years.
It's not used very often. It's primarily much if you want to pass.
Yeah, well, then Knights of Columbus,
It's a Columbus.
Yeah,
they give a lot of money back.
They do.
I think right back.
Yeah.
it's also a capacity thing. You have a capacity of 130 people there and then the arena's roughly 300 and something. So it depends what kind of event,
Right.
right?
And you got the busy bees using it as well.
Yeah.
Computers and so forth.
Yeah, the busy bees.
That was well used, not
Yeah.
seniors, don't get me wrong.
That's why when we get to like a lease, you gotta have all those kinds of exceptions, right? And
Well, that's why you go back to it. It's a wide element, but there's community events that happen. You have to have it.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
yeah,
In the same argument you can use in almost all of our facilities. It's a quality of life issue that everyone's into, and the taxpayers built them, so.
Before we go on to your next one, I got a question for you. I missed it. I apologize on the capital. We had talked about satellites, playgrounds, a couple of areas in some of our parkland dedication. Whatever happened to that?
But it's in a plan, we're doing a plan, it's coming to council in December. And that's part of the fees as well, and to include for the consulting, that's what basically we said, so it's going to come back, council approved terms of reference, the beautification project. And it will come back to council as a plan.
That was the 7th. So nothing's gonna happen.
No, nothing this year, no.
well, one way to look at it though, like that said, but there's a playground gonna happen. There's the boat launch expansion. There's quite a bit on the recreation side that's going ahead this year.
That's true.
Because we had talked about the Phil Brown subdivision, we talked about, the person driving. Playground. and whatnot. So
From a staff perspective, this year was kind of a planning year on how to go about it. And like what areas, not every area is gonna have a playground structure just there, right? It could be a gazebo, it could be whatever, but in the strat plan, it kind of dictated what year things were gonna.
So it's their discussion.
the only reason,
I mean, but if council says, hey, no, we want to do something, Bill Brown subdivision, this year, that's your decision, but.
I was saying, because if we are doing work on McPherson Drive, we're gonna have the equipment down there. It wouldn't take much to get it ready, get the stand, beaches.
It's in the plan, that is in there with that thought in mind as well, so that's how, as we develop the plan, it's with that thought that if we do go forward with McPherson Drive. At the end, there's an opportunity there to develop that, Phil Brown, we do cut the grass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we do.
It's just an
It's going to
open,
continue,
it's an open area, like a green space.
yeah, so it's just that to go through the planning process.
Any other questions? Nope. You guys want 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
that's what I felt.
Okay, is this the last one?
Yes,
Yes, it's that.
and Greg, I'll have done 20 minutes. Have you on your way? Well, there's planning and that.
Yeah. So,
Take 5. We're still live, remember that, guys.
Oh.
Oh, what do you think? Going up.
Okay, so much of that for you guys, not so bad for me.
Well, I'm sure you go back to a bunch of emails and phone calls and, right, so it doesn't end, it's just. We are sort of staying in that stream where you gotta jump in and jump out.
This, I just doing this all day for
But
so long.
so it's hard to understand.
Yeah.
The big picture, right? To say, okay, everything's up, where do you cut? Because nothing seems to be
It's
cuttable.
not easy to cut.
I know.
It's not easy, it's
Right,
so because when all of your major expenses are things like non-negotiable, things like eating and stuff like that.
right, well, and insurance and gas.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, it's,
you know, and I was just listening to, you know, with the fires and with the flooding in Mattawa and different, like insurances are going up all over the place, like in
see that the past budget has been having really difficult years as far as like size of their increases go, so. Yeah, we've always been ours really good though, like as far as like, it's been low for years and years and years. So, I mean, if there's, I mean,
As a municipality that we did, is that us, when we kept on going, rather than meeting concerns, we had very healthy concerns. Then we went through a period of 5 or 6 years where we used them up. We brought a tax rate so low, exceeded all our reserves. It was not the right approach. It was wrong. And then I thought we had to rebuild it.
Why that's fun. What we-
Oh,
I'm gonna throw this in the,
Still live, right?
Yes.
oh, no.
Here we are.
So I said earlier, we're live, right?
It's still live. It's okay. Thank you.
It's okay.
yeah.
We're good. Long day. Long day, working hard.
On day-
It was a heavier day.
Neither am I.
Do we have pizzas coming in now or are we waiting? Yeah. Productive day, seriously. What's a productive day?
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Ready to proceed? So I'll hand to you. So we're now gonna go through planning and economic development. I hand it that way. So take it away, Greg.
Okay, thank you. So the planning and economic development budget is, it's largely the same as past years. These departments don't really have fluctuating costs, because there's no like operational costs related to any buildings or facilities or anything like that, so we don't get those type of swings. We are.
I may say combined, there's a $3,000 decrease over last year. With a pretty equal budget from
Even the whole budget, you mean?
for planning and active combined.
Oh, yeah.
It's 3,000 less is the effect over last year. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's driven by a lot of revenues as well, though, right?
So you say the good news last.
I guess so. Sorry, Greg.
Well, that's fine. I don't think I was saying, I'll just touch on it quickly, it's something you'll be familiar with, but the whole first section is all of the wages and associated costs, our operational things like software, our CDIS, so that's our.
You skip revenues though, eh? Short-term rentals?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Yes, so I missed the short-term revenues on top, so the 4750 is actuals for licensing revenue. Year to date, yeah.
Oh.
So that's what we've received so far this year. And there's no funding or anything in this one, so that's really just the revenues. Then the next section is all the wages and associated things. The biggest expense outside of wages is our CGIS computer system, so that's our digital mapping used for basically everything. And that's at $22,000. Otherwise, pretty consistent over the past years.
About a 2% or $2,000 decrease over last year right there.
Yeah,
Department expenses.
Yeah. Then expenditures, yeah, it's $200 for training. Visual planning session, small amounts, it's any minor legal things that come up. We do have another goals. Moving into the revenues for the zoning bylaw. These ones we always say it can be a little bit difficult because you can never know who's gonna decide to make an application for what project. So you just have to kind of guess based on past years or if you're, you know, if I'm aware that an application is probably coming in, then I'll kind of use my judgment. So we've budgeted 4,500 a year so far. That's basically assuming we get 3 applications, and we've had 1 already, and I know 1 more that will be coming, so we're hoping for 3. And some minor expenditures for legal consultant and related to the zoning bylaw. So if anything comes up. The next section, this is where you'll see one of the more significant changes. So our revenues, we had 1 really big year for severances 2 years ago, and then it dropped off a bit again last year, which our estimate was actually pretty close. But everything is just a little bit slower this year again, still as far as like home construction and people developing land. So I dropped the severances estimate to 21,000 from last year's. The actual was 27,500. So that seems probably about right. A couple down. So site plan control agreements. So last year our actual revenue was 12,600, and I estimated 2,000 this year. And this is a direct result of the Bill 23 changes that went into effect January 1st. So where the province removed their ability to use site plan control for lakefront properties. The one thing I will say is the consultation that's out right now with the policy statement changes and the other associated things with the Helping Homebuyers Plan. They are proposing to give municipalities that power for site plan control for lakefront properties only, give it back. We don't know for sure whether that's going to be approved, but if it is, then this number may end up being on the low side. But as of right now, I can't use site plan control for anything besides commercial and industrial, essentially. So that's why you see the drop of 10,000 estimated revenues for site plan control. The other ones are pretty consistent. So for the next one for planning applications, this is where our main legal consulting accounts. We always have to budget around this. It goes up or down depending on what we need to do. But for example, if we ever get any appeals to the Ontario Land Tribunal, or if we have some major issue that comes up, the cost add up fast. So last year we only spent 10,000 and budgeted 15, but the year before we spent over 16,000. So depending on what issues you have, there needs to be some legal. The next line, expenditures, so per diem pay, so this is the. Speak to a consultant, 5,000. Oh, yeah, the consulting is similar if we need to hire anyone for any type of application review. Specifically in this case, the reason why we bumped it up and didn't have any last year is also related to Bill 23. So the other thing that the Bill 23 did was remove the Conservation Authority's ability to review certain types of applications. So they used to comment a lot on our hydrogeological studies from the kind of like water perspective and the environmental site assessments from like an endangered species perspective. They're not allowed to do that anymore. They have a lot of expertise in that area. More than I do. So the reason I brought this up is just because say we get a subdivision application comes in and there's a complicated study or something that needs to be reviewed because of our inability to rely on staff, we may have to rely on consultants for a second review of the study there's in minutes. Thanks, great. So that's the next line is per diem. So this is the $50 per diem that goes to planning committee / committee of adjustment numbers that are non-council members. And that's it for planning actually. Maybe I'll just do economic development quick as well and then take any questions on all of it together. But economic development for revenue. So this is mostly trade show related stuff. These numbers are pretty accurate as of a couple days ago. We haven't, so registration for Bruce is closed. So that number should be fixed. We did get one more additional sponsorship, I think yesterday. So we're a little bit over the 11,000 now, but these are really good numbers compared to past years. Our trade show has been doing well last year and this year from a sponsorship and booth registration perspective. And then the expenditures, so the big one is the trade show cost. So this encompasses the amount that we put into the trade show for the fee that we pay to Cantor Consulting and all the other incidentals that we cover. And then we recoup whatever amount we're able to through the registrations, et cetera. And we have a small amount budgeted for other initiatives. There's always little things that the economic development committee might come up with or wants to do, and or something we want to do ourselves. Some of the things that we have in our strat plan talk about supporting businesses with like promotional material and setting up seminars. So we have a little bit to cover those types of initiatives. That's also some consulting also goes along with that. So those kind of work together. And then the CIP incentive disbursement. We still have a couple CIP application files to resolve. So people who have been approved in the past for the tax rebate program. So this is to basically cover those commitments already made. And that's everything. So the total operating 181,000. So yeah, down about 3,000 from last year's actuals for both departments.
Good. Any questions on planning and ECTA?
The red program, who now take down, yeah, we haven't applied to.
I haven't heard very much about that. It hasn't come out again this year, eh?
We haven't had it this year. There may have been one in January.
I don't recall an email or any kind of, they're promoting it, right?
Yeah, we don't have any applications for anything.
It might be a good one to look at the list if it's any active items,
Yeah,
like strap items, I should say.
yeah.
Any questions, further questions before? So basically the objective tonight is to go back home, and we get a cup of hot tea and we think of everything that we've heard today as we prepare for tomorrow for discussion and, but we can take this opportunity to really congratulate the staff, and all of the staff for having a great document. They're very complete, so thank you for that.
Welcome. Yep, absolutely.
So everyone get a good night's sleep. Restful evening. We'll come back tomorrow on that note. Unless there's any further comments, I will call for adjournment.
And now adjourned at 3:12.